Hello, this is Bob Woodfin, the Bob Woodfin Photography and Rowlett Texas Photography Club. Just wanted to do this as a follow-up to our workshop for introduction to Photoshop. We were covering the Liquify tool, and I just wanted to kind of go through that in this episode and hopefully get you going so that you can understand it a lot better. I don't use the Liquify tool very much at all. I use it very rarely, but usually when I do use the Liquify tool, I'm using it because of something that I have messed up. Usually it's in posing, and most of the time I use it in portraits, and I'll use it whenever I have the model pose in a way so that it's not so flattering, and sometimes even with a professional model, if they have tight clothes or something like that, they may have a little bit of a bulge or something that you want to push in. You can also use Liquify for help with stray hairs or hair flyaways that are maybe big pieces of hair that you don't feel like removing, then you can just push them back into the rest of the hair. So let's go ahead and get started. And whenever I use just about any kind of filter, I usually create it in a smart filter. So we're going to do a clone stamp layer. That's the Command Option Shift E or Command Alt Shift E, and it creates a layer that is a consolidation of the other layers. We're going to right click on that layer, and we're going to go up here to Convert to Smart Object. And that's going to create a smart object with it, so that if I decide if I do something, bring it back, and decide I want to make a change to it, then I have the ability to do that. We're going to double click in here and call this Liquify. So the Liquify filter is in your menu up here, and right here under Liquify also has a shortcut of Shift Command X if you wanted to use that shortcut. I typically click it up here, but I'm a big believer in shortcuts. So Shift Command I or Shift Control I if you're on a Windows computer will open up the interface for Liquify. Now on the left hand side you'll see all of these tools over here, and on the right hand side you'll see properties that you can use with those tools. So I'm going to first go over the tools, and then I'm going to go over the properties, and then we're going to do some samples of what I would do in this image to help help adjust some of the things that I feel like should be adjusted. So we're going to start with the first tool here is called the Forward Warp tool. The Forward Warp tool basically allows you to just come over here and start pushing things around like this. Don't want to leave that there, so we're going to go to the next tool, which is the Reconstruct tool. The Reconstruct tool allows you to just bring it back like this when you paint over it. So pretty nice, pretty easy to use. The next tool is the Smooth tool. If I come in here and I make back on the Forward Warp tool, come in here and make some things where I have little bumps in here like this, I can use the Smooth tool to come in here and just kind of go over them a little bit like this, and it flattens out those bumps so that it becomes more smooth. It does it very gradually, as you can see. Bring that back. Okay. The next tool is the Swirl tool or the Twirl tool, and basically if you click on that and come over here and click and hold it down, it just twirls around. I never have ever used this tool, but I can see some people will use it maybe to make water splashes. If you've got a picture of the ocean and you want some of the water to splash like this, you can make a twirl like that. I'm not sure what else you would use it for. Maybe if you want to do some abstracts or something, you can come in here and use the Twirl tool. I don't have a use for it at all though, so I'm going to come in here and just reconstruct this back to where it was. Okay. And then we have this tool. This is called the Pucker tool. The Pucker tool. You notice on the Twirl tool, let me just mention this, that you just click and you don't swipe or anything. You just click and hold. Just click and hold like that. it's the same with the pucker tool. The pucker tool opens up things. Just look at her eye. I'm sorry, it puckers it. It brings it in, so it squeezes it in like that. So that's the pucker tool. Then you have the bloat tool, which is the next tool on here. It does just the opposite. Put it over the eye, and it makes the eye get really big like that. So those tools I don't use at all, but they're available, and I can see where there can be used if you wanted to do something subtly maybe with those. The next tool is the push left tool, and it's kind of, they have to call it, I would just call it a push tool. They call it a push left tool. If you click on that and you push left, everything is pushed down. Let me do it down here, you can see on the arm. If I push left, the arm goes down. If I push right, the arm goes up. If I push up, it goes to the left. Let me do that again. Push up, it goes to the left. If I push down, it goes to the right. So those are push tools. That's the push tool, I call it. I rarely use that as well, but if you just needed to push this in a little bit, you could come in here and just barely kind of go on the edge like that and push it in. So it has its use, but I typically will just use the forward warp tool for something like that. The next tool is the freeze tool. If I want to not have something to move, for example, if I wanted to move her arm and not have this strap move, I can paint over that strap, and then when I use the forward warp tool, I can come in here and push that in, and that strap is not going to move. It's some other weird stuff, but the strap's not going to move. Okay, and then below that, let's do that again. Below that is the thaw tool, and you just come in here and erase it with the thaw tool. And those are the major tools that you use to work with anything in the Liquify space. Now down below that is, this is new as of, I don't know, CC 2018 or 19, something like that. It's fairly new, where they have specific tools for working on faces. So if you click this, and you can see that you have some facial tools that you can work with. You come in here and stretch this out. I'm not going to do these, but you can come to any of these, make the eye a little bigger, make it a little wider, tilt it a little bit with this. You can do the same with the entire face. You can pull it out, skinny up the chin, all kinds of things like that with these tools. There are properties over here that you can use along with these that we're going to talk about in just a minute. But right now, if you just click on this, you can come in here and make adjustments. This is a beautiful young lady, and I've known her since she was about 10 years old, and she's always had this little bit of a lazy eye on the right hand side here, so I'd always try to open that up just a little bit without it being noticeable necessarily, because I don't want to change who she is. So below the face tool is the hand tool, which basically just moves it around. If you had it, too big like this, you can move it around, that sort of thing. Just like on other tools. And then the zoom tool, which basically just does exactly that. It zooms in, zooms way in. So that's the tools on the toolbar. Now let's go over here and look at properties. And these are pretty cool. The brush options tool, or the brush tool option, you still have the ability, if you're using a brush type tool over here, like the forward warp tool, you can still use the bracket keys to make it bigger and smaller. But you also have other things over here, like the density, pressure, and rate scales over here. So what are these? The density tool determines how far inside this circle before it starts making an adjustment. So for example, if you have it on 0, it's going to start making an adjustment way in here like this. It's almost to the middle of the circle before it actually starts pushing anything in. Okay. Bring it back so that we don't mess things up here. If you have it on, oh, it's on 50. Okay, if you have it on 0, oh, that's because I'm on the reconstruction tool, sorry. Okay, so that was 0. We're almost to the middle of the circle before it makes any kind of change. If you go to 100, notice that it starts making a change real quick inside your 0 there, inside your circle. Okay? So let's bring it back. Okay, so it's somewhere in between is what I like. I like it around 50, and the only reason is because that was the default that it was on when I started learning the Liquify tool. So I've kind of gotten used to that. I can see times where I may want to change that. Now the pressure tool is interesting as well. That's how quickly the change begins to happen. If I've got it on 100, that starts to, okay, again, I'm on the reconstruct tool, have to be careful about that. That starts to make a change very quickly, okay? If I'm on 0, you have to really, it's actually not even making a change. So if I move it up to say 10, it slowly begins to make that change. So you can see there how different 10 is from 100. Again, I'm usually around 50, so it just depends on what you get used to, what you need. There may be some times when I'm in a sensitive area where I'll want to change it so that it's a lot more subtle. The rate tool only happens when you're using the twirl tool, the pucker tool, or the bloat tool, and I'll show you the difference here. The rate tool is at 8 for the reconstruction tool. It doesn't mean anything. Actually, it does mean something. I didn't think it worked with the reconstruction, but it does. So if let's just use the reconstruction tool as an example. I come in here and let's just make this up here so it works a little faster. There we go. And I come in here to reconstruct, and I'm on 8. The reconstruct tool, you can see, works real quick. Okay? If I do that again, I'll just come in here, and I change the reconstruct tool to be up here, let's say 80. A little slower. Takes a few more strokes to get it to work. So the whole thing about that is how fast do you want that to work. That's the rate tool. So let's use the twirl for example. If I have the twirl, it's default set to 100. And each one of these, by the way, has different settings for density, pressure, and rate. So you can set each tool to be different. This is set to 100. Again, we're twirling here. Twirls real fast. If I change that to 50, a lot slower. So, and if I were to change it way down here, it would take all day. So we're going to go back to the reconstruct tool and fix this right here since you have it wavy here. Okay, so that's what the rate tool is. It just speeds up or slows down these where you only, where it affects something as you're either holding it or in the reconstruct tool where you're trying to bring it back. The next tool, if you have a tablet connected, then this should light up and allow you to use your tablet's pin pressure as well. Let's talk about the pin edges. Pin edges, well, if I want to, let's turn it off just to show you. Let's say I wanted to move this arm in a little bit. So on the forward work tool. I move the arm in. You know what? Let's get out because it's not going to make sense unless I turn these others off. Okay, let's go back in here. Okay, one more time. If I want to move this arm over, and I have pin edges turned off, and I've got to do this. It's still not doing it. Let's see. Why is it doing it? Okay, one more time. You would know that something wouldn't work. But the pin edges is designed so that if you go to move an edge over, it's going to show transparencies behind it. If you have this pin edge turned on, it doesn't allow that to happen. In this case, wouldn't you know, there's some reason why it is showing something behind it. Let's see if I've got view options, show backdrop. Let's see if that's what it's doing. There we go. I was telling it to show the backdrop. So if you, so it's basically pushing those edges in if you have the pin option turned off. So let's try this again. Let me do a, I'm just going to show you this real quick. Restore all. If I want to move this arm over, I'll say it right this time, and it'll work this time. It's going to show transparency in there. Okay? The reason is because it's moving all of that as well, and there's nothing over in this area to pull over to cover in its place. So if I have pin edges turned on, it's going to not allow that to happen. But see what it does to the arm down here? Let me get down here close. You can see it just stretches that over. You can see right here. It doesn't allow that transparency to show up, but it just takes that arm that's there and just makes it look like pulled plastic or something. So you have to be careful about how you work around the edges. Excuse me. But that's what pin edges does. And let's come in here and restore. And those are the brush options, the brush properties. So let's close that and let's talk about the face aware. In the face aware, you can see it says face number 1. If I had a group here, a family, I could do work on each one of those individuals individually. It would have each one of them numbered, and you could work on the nose, the eyes, the mouth, the face, all independently. In this case, we only have one. So if we have this face and I want to work on the eyes, I can open up the eyes and I can do these things, and it's already found out where the eyes are. So if I wanted to change the eye size, remember I said that she has a little bit of a lazy eye here, and what I mean is it's closed a little bit. And I can take the eye size first and I can push it up a little bit. It makes the eye bigger all the way around. And it does look a little bit more comparable to the left eye by adding a little bit to it. Then you can change the eye height. I'm not going to, I don't think that's what I need to do, but you can push it up like that. Change that eye height. Then you have the eye width. I don't think I need to make any changes to that, so it makes it wider. Eye tilt. I don't need to make it any tilt, so you can turn it this way or that way. And then you have eye distance, the distance between the eyes. You just push it left, closer together, right, and some further apart. So those are the eye tools. Then you have the nose, and you can change the nose height. You want to make it shorter or longer, that way, shorter, that way. And the nose width, same kind of thing. A little narrower that way, a little wider that way, depending on what makes sense. Again, I'm not going to make any change to that. So those are the nose tools. The mouth tool, you can make her smile a little more, a little less, however you want it to look. The upper lip, you can make it go up or down, make it bigger if you wanted to, change that. The mouth width, wider mouth, smaller mouth, depending on what makes sense. I'm not going to change any of those. And then the mouth height, you can make the mouth go open or close a little bit like that. So that's the mouth. Then you have the face options. The forehead, you can make it go up or down, depending on what you think you might need to do. Chin can go longer, shorter, jawline, thinner, wider, and then you have the face width. You can make your smaller, wider face. And again, I typically have always done this kind of work by using the forward warp tool, but now that these are available, I probably would do maybe a little bit of work with these. But again, the Liquify is for very subtle type changes. Okay, so that's the face shape tool. So those are the face Liquify tools. And if you have this selected, again, you can do the exact same thing by coming in here, and you can see how the cursor changes here, and you can make this eye a little bigger, a little smaller, whatever, and it will automatically make changes over here in association with that. So if you'd rather do it over here, you can do it here rather than using the sliders. Okay, let's talk about load mesh options. A mesh is basically a display of the changes that you've made, where you can see the changes that you've made. And what I mean by that, let's look at mask or view options. If I show the mesh, you see that there's a little grid up here, and it's got a size of large, small, or medium. It's got a color that you can show. If you want it to be green, you can make it green, whatever. I really don't use this the way that it is here. I turn that off. I don't typically use that. But what the mesh options can also do is you can save a mesh and then you can use it again, or you can have it available in case you change your mind. So if we were to come in here, just let me show you what I mean by that. If I take the forward warp tool and I came in here and I did some work, which we're going to do in a minute, except a lot better than this, on her arm here, and I go, okay, that looks like what I want, then I can save this mesh onto my hard drive, call it, just leave it Liquify mesh, save, and I'm back here, and then I can go, if I didn't create a smart object here, see, I didn't save it, so I can go, I didn't save that, I forgot. So you can come over here and open up your Liquify. Again, sorry, not what I wanted to do. Filter, Liquify, and then come in here and say load mesh, and pick that Liquify mesh, and there you go. So it's kind of like saving the changes you made without saving them to your layer stack. And of course I don't like this, so we're going to turn that off. But that's one way to use a mesh. It also has load last mesh. So if I had another mesh that I had loaded before, and I can say load last one, and it would bring that last one in. Okay? So we're going to mask options. Whenever you use the freeze tool over here and start freezing something, you're actually creating a mask because you don't want that to be affected, right? So it's the same thing here, except you can load a layer mask that you have created and use it as a mask. So if I had a mask in here, I could come in and say mask everything, and then I could say that I want to add to selection a layer mask. If I had one, I don't have one set, and that layer mask may be a mask of her, and then I would have everything else mask off except for her, and then I could come in here and do my adjustments as long as I didn't try to do anything on the edges, because if you try something on the edges, it's just like as if it were on this edge right here. If I try to push it in, it's going to pull that across and make it look like stretched plastic. So if you wanted to use a mask that you've created in another situation, you definitely can bring it in and use it so that you don't affect that area. And that's what these are for. You can add, what does this say? Replace your selection. You can add to it. You can subtract from it, intersect with it, or invert it. So here, if I say invert all, it just gives you back what you had. Mask all or none is the same as invert at this point. So these are just for bringing in mask. I have never used these, but if you have an instance where you spent hours creating a mask and you really want to use it, then this would be a way that you could use that. Okay. Then we have view options, and view options show guides. If I had guides on my regular image, I could click this and it would show those guides. Those guides meaning that if I needed a guide, let me just go there and show you what I mean. I can grab from here and bring a guide over here and say I want to zero in on her eye right there. I can bring that down, and now I'm right in the middle of that left eye, and I was using that to measure something, I don't know. Then I could come in here and do filter, Liquify, and these guides are showing, they're still here. Typically I wouldn't want those because they kind of distract me, but if you needed them to help you measure something, like if you wanted to push this arm in to be an exact location, then you can use this guide and keep it there. But that's what the view option for show guides is. When I turn that off, that goes away. Show image, basically you can turn the image on and off. I'm not sure why you wouldn't want it there, since that's what you're using it for. Show the face overlay. If I didn't want these face things to show up, I could turn this off and they would not show up, so you would be forced to either use a forward warp tool or you can still use these face aware tools over here, you just don't have the guides to show up. But I like to have those turned on. And show mask. This basically says I do want to show the mask. If I have freeze, it's not going to allow me to show it, and it gives me a warning message here that I can't see it because I don't have it turned on. So I turn it on, then I can see it, and I can change the color to be whatever. So I can change it to yellow, blue. I think the default color is red just because it's the first one on the list. Okay, so now I'll follow that. Get rid of that. Okay, so that's show mask. Now show backdrop. Show backdrop is good because if you are working on a cutout, so you have an extraction and you're just working on that extraction, maybe I've got her extracted and I just want to work on her, but I wanted to see the background to see how she's going to look on that background, then I can say show backdrop, and by showing backdrop I can say which layers I want to see. Do I want to see all the layers, or I just want to see a certain one, which is very cool. And you can either show that layer either behind her, in front of her, or blend it in with her. Pretty interesting, and you can even do a opacity. So you may only want to see it at 50% or something. Okay, so those are the view options. Then you have the brush reconstruct options. And these are really nice because if I come in here with the forward warp tool and I do something really wonky like this, I can say reconstruct, and I can tell it just about how much. I see how that changes. How much do I want to reconstruct? Do I want it all the way, or do I just want it part way, or how do I want it? In addition to that, I have just the restore all, which you've seen me hit a time or two, and it just restores everything. So the reconstruct tool, this one up here is really nice because you can just zero in on a certain area. If you've done a lot of work, you can zero in on a particular area. That reconstruct tool allows you to reconstruct parts of the entire, not really know why you want to do just part of a reconstruction, but you may. And then the restore all is nice because then it just does everything. You don't have to do Command Z or Control Z 50 times to get back where you were. So those are the tools on the left, properties on the right, and what they do. So now let me show you what I would be doing with this particular image. As I said before, I don't like to make someone not be who they are. So I'm not going to come in here and reconstruct her face or reconstruct her bust or anything like that. I'm going to come in here and fix the things that I messed up by allowing her to pose this way, which basically is this great big arm here. since she was putting all of her weight on this arm, it really made it look big. So what I'm going to do is come in here and I'm going to move this arm over a little bit, and I'm going to move this bottom part of the arm over so it doesn't look like she's bending her arm backwards, which is what she's doing. And the way I do this, and again, I basically work strictly with the Ford work tool, just because early on, I didn't really want to figure out what all these were. I didn't understand what they did, so I just figured out how to use the Ford work tool for the most part. So what I'm going to do is, very subtly, a little at a time, I'll come in here, and you can just kind of see how I'm doing this. And the whole reason for doing it this way is to not have those little bumps that you need to use the smooth tool for. Now you can see how big my brush is. I have it this size for a reason. I didn't want to include this hair over here because I don't want to push the hair in. I just want to push her in. And you can see I just got a little bump there, so I'm going to make this a little bit smaller here to just kind of push in this area to kind of smooth that out. And you can see what happens when you create a bump like that. I'm going to try to bring this back out a little bit. You start multiplying your issue. So we'll come back along here in a minute with the smooth tool and try to smooth this out a little bit. But you have to go very slow, at least in my opinion. You go pretty slow here. And when you start speeding up is when you start getting in trouble. And again, the idea is to work this so that it looks as natural as you can make it. So you can tell that I've got some bumps here. And I'm kind of going in a hurry anyway, trying to make this videos not be so long. As you can see here that I've got some bumps in here. So I'm going to come up here and do take the smooth tool and just kind of try to smooth these out a little bit. And I really have never been one to use the smooth tool, but you can see how it has really helped bring some of this and make it a little smoother. So now I would work a little bit more on this. It's still a little bumpy there if you look at it. So I'm going to come in here and just kind of push some of these to get those bumps out. That's the problem when you're using a small brush, is that you get these little bumps in here. So I'm going to accept that right there, and we're going to show the before and the after. So you can see how far I went with that, and it still looks pretty natural. Now another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push this over a little bit, and when I do, it's going to push the dress over, and I'm okay with that. Make this a little bigger, even bigger, and we're going to come in here, and I'm just going to kind of push that over, kind of shrink that arm's width a little bit more in line with the way she really is. Okay, so I like that. Now I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to push this arm over. And I'm going to make sure that that thin edges is clipped in it is. So I'm going to start, I just want to push this part over. So I'm going to start just kind of pushing this over, and sometimes you have to kind of push down in order to make sure that the bottom part of that doesn't leave anything. So that's pushed down. Then I'm going to come over here, and I am going to freeze her dress. So I'm going to use the freeze tool and come in here and freeze this dress right here, and I'm basically going to try to just close that gap as much as possible. So I'm going to come back up here, and I'm going to make this a little smaller, and I'm just going to begin to start pushing that over, and it's going to look, you know that it's not correct, but it looks a little bit more natural now. So now I'll take this and thaw that. Whoops, wrong tool. This is the thaw tool. Thaw that, and now that looks a little better. It might even look a little straighter than it really should, but now we have that as opposed to that. It looks a lot more natural, right? And if you didn't know that I just did that, then you just wouldn't know, because, I mean, if you look, you can see, if you look very hard and you're looking for it, you can see little tiny flaws. But you know, with a little bit slower work, if I'd done this a little slower, it would look much, much better. Now, another thing I may do, not really in her case because I know her, but if this were a model and being maybe I'm doing this for a commercial ad or something, her nose is a little bit crooked, and I might come in here and just try to grab it and maybe straighten it up a little bit like that, and then maybe bring it over a little bit more, maybe a little bit here. You had the ability. No wonder that's happening. I'm using the thaw tool. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Now I should see something. Yeah, there we go. Okay. You saw in the face tools that I have the ability to make it longer or wider, but not straighten it. So this is kind of a way to go in and just kind of straighten it. See, just a little bit of a nudge over there to kind of straighten that out. So little things like that. And that is about it. For this image, that is all I would do to come in here and do that. So if I were a little apprehensive about it, I may come up here and save the mesh and just say save and just replace the Liquify mesh that I had before. Done. Come here and then I say okay, and then since I have a smart object here, I really don't have to worry about doing that. But I just thought maybe I'll go in later and maybe I'll get rid of these. Maybe I would go in later and see something here that I want to change, and I may go in and make a change to it and then come back and decide I don't like it, then I can always go back and load the other mesh. But that's a pretty good quick demonstration and discussion about the Liquify tool. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please use it in moderation, very subtle changes only. Read or watch this video another time or two to understand how those tools work. And once you do that, then no holds barred. So thanks a lot, and we'll be talking to you again.